Hey everybody, Rich here from SHTFandGO. We haven't made a Gravi-Stil video in a while, and we have had some revisions to the system throughout the years. So we wanted to make a new video to show you some of the changes, and we're going to be removing all the old videos just to keep confusion down. So let's just dig right in and open this thing up and show you what you guys will get when you get one of these systems. So comes in a very nice, compact box. Everything is inside, collapsed together. We'll grab our, right on top you'll notice the instructions and the owner's manual. We'll set that aside. And inside the unit, we'll pull this out. Everything's wrapped up in bubble wrap. So we'll go ahead and show you what it all looks like. Take the lids off. We'll set that aside. The top lid, set that aside. You can see how everything's set inside. We'll take the collection plate, set that aside. Now, if you're unaware with what the Gravi-Stil is, the Gravi-Stil is a non-electric water distiller system that can run on wood, can run on electric. The bottom of our boiling pot is actually double layered with an aluminum insert so that we can also use it on induction plates like this. Here's three of our stoves that we actually manufacture here, but the Gravi-Stil can run on our 50 BMG and our RPG. We actually designed this stove to operate our Gravi-Stil system. This is more of a small camping stove, doesn't have quite the output to run the system consistently, but you can definitely run it on this system and the RPG stove. So you can see those on our website as well. But we're going to go ahead and take the ceramic filter, because this system can run as a gravity filter or as a water distiller. So if you're not familiar, distilling is where we're boiling water and then we're going to recondense the water, and the output is pure water. All the contaminants, everything that is in the water is left behind. Only the water is collected. So we'll take that ceramic filter, and I'll show you that later. We'll set that aside. We're going to pull out the float mechanism that actually rides inside the boiling chamber. This float allows the water to maintain a certain level in the boiling chamber. Inside the kit also we have some active carbon packets. These are packets that you would either put in your output water. You can set it in a funnel and run water through it. The reason for this is that if you're using surface water that is very, very dirty with petroleum products, oils, anything like that, volatile organic chemicals as well, that this will help absorb those, because those chemicals boil at a lower temperature than water. Most VOCs boil in that 140 to 170 degree range. So they're going to start boiling off before the water boils. So most of that will boil off and be exhausted into the atmosphere. But if some does recondense, then we can absorb it and catch it with this. All water distillers that you buy for commercial or residential use, home water distillers, have some form of carbon packet to handle those types of products. We also have the air pump that would be used for the gravity system. When you want to use it as a high speed, you can actually pressurize the system. We're going to set those aside because we're not going to be using that when we're using it as a distiller. And we'll pull out all the system and our stainless steel discharge tube. So I'll show you guys how this thing goes together. We'll take the big pot and set that aside for now. Here, we'll set it right on top of our electric plate here. And there's a couple things that you need to be made aware of so that you don't have to troubleshoot this thing later. We definitely want to take care of the stainless steel feeder tube so that we don't have, if you bend it or anything, the float will not move properly. So I'll show you how to troubleshoot that and make sure that that's done correctly. Next thing we're going to do is open up our stainless steel valves. I'm going to take that and set that aside. So these are a solid 304 stainless steel valve so that you can drain the system and hook up tubing for the enhanced system. So I'll show you that here in a moment. But let's go ahead and put this on there. We'll take the nut off. Take one of the gaskets. You're going to leave one gasket on, and that's going to go through the outside. We'll take our little silicone gasket, put that on the inside, put our little washer and our nut, and I'll show you what this looks like once it's installed here in a moment. So you can turn the valve itself to tighten it, so you don't really need any tools, and you don't really need to tighten it too much. So now you can see inside how that valve is set up. So right now when the handle is facing forward, that's open. You turn the handle that way and that's closed. Next, we're going to set up our float. So inside this, a lot of people end up throwing this in the garbage. They don't see that it's inside. So just be careful when you're going through the box. There are parts that are set up. So inside that bubble wrap is our valve mechanism. Now this valve is what's going to connect to our stainless steel float. It's threaded here, so we'll go ahead and thread that on. You can give it a little turn. Doesn't really need to be that tight. It's not going to come off. So this is what's going to go inside this pot. So I'm going to set that here. I'll show you here. So when this valve, this part is going to be mounted into this pot, and this valve is going to slide up and down. When water drops, it'll let water in from the top pot, and when water rises in the boiling, it's going to shut off against that little valve. So we'll set this over here. Now we're going to turn this small pot on its side. We're going to unscrew the wing nut. We're going to take off the stainless steel washer, and then there's two gaskets. One needs to stay on this part, and you stick that through the bottom. And then I'll turn this so you can see. Then you're going to take the other gasket, and that goes on the threads. Take your washer, that goes on top, and then you take your little stainless steel wing nut. So I'm going to go ahead and thread this on there. And just hand tight. Now you can see what that looks like. That is our condenser pot. The things you have to worry about. Don't set this down at an angle. If you bend this, this float will not be able to slide up and down when it's in the system like that. If this thing has any, if it doesn't move freely, you more than likely have bent this stainless steel tube. You're either going to need to straighten it in the field. It is very easy to bend back if you do. It's not super hard. But if it does need to be bent, then you're going to need to bend that so that this float can slide up and down easily. All right, now we're going to set this aside here for a moment. And we're going to work on the boiling chamber. Once again, there's a valve. So we'll go ahead and open up the second valve. And this is just a valve for draining the system. Once water's in it, if you need to drain off the hot water or drain it to clean it or drain it to move it, that's what these are for. So we'll go ahead and put that in there. Put the washer in, the silicone washer, the stainless steel washer, and the nut, and tighten everything down again. Okay, now I'm going to move the hot plate over here just so you can see how it would be set up. So this is actually one of the induction hot plates. It does operate on electric stoves, induction, gas, propane. We even have people running them on charcoal, barbecue pits, wood fires. So on the induction, it depends on your stove and the manufacturer and the output of that stovetop. But this does not put out as much energy as a regular electric stove with a large heating coil or a gas stove. So water output may be a little bit lower if you have an induction. You'll just have to see how your system operates on that. But with that, with that doubled bottom, stainless steel bottom on these, on these pots, it does operate fairly well. That's different from our old system. So if you have one of our old systems, it has a single wall pot, and those did not work on induction. So we made that change. All right, so you get the big pot set up with the valve. Next, we're going to insert our float into the large pot, and we're going to take our large lid, which is the one with the big hole in it, and we're going to take that and stick that rod through that hole. And now we can go ahead and tighten this down. Now these lids have gaskets, so that's why they're sealing completely. So if you worry about knocking this thing over or something like that, if you're setting it up outdoors, that's the only place water is going to be able to come out of because of that seal. Next, we're going to take our collection plate. Collection plate has gaskets on both sides. These are stainless steel, 304 stainless. And this is where the condensing of the water happens so that we can have an output. The white gasket goes up. We have had some issues where people install it this way, not reading or following directions. That doesn't make any water. So we need that white gasket to be on top. Now we're going to set that on top of the large condenser, and that little rod is going to be sticking out of the center hole. Next, we're going to take the bottom where we have the stainless steel tube that's feeding from the top pot, and we're going to slide that down on top of that float. And you'll see how I'm just rotating it so the valves are on the same side, but you'll see how everything fits together nice and snug. This is where we're going to start filling the system. We put water in here, and water will naturally fall into the boiling chamber, and as the water fills up, it will shut the water off with that float that's inside. Next, we're going to hook up now we include two different pieces of tubing. You can run either one or both, depending on how you want this to set up. So our discharge tube connects right up here to this little stainless steel fitting. Or if you want to have a stainless steel discharge tube, you're going to connect it up exactly the same way. That just goes right on there. And this is where we would output the water once the system starts running. Couple things to note. You do not use the small lid when you're running it as a distiller. We need evaporative cooling. That's how the system works. This pot, heat from the steam is rising up, hitting the bottom of this pot, dripping into our collection plate, and then out through the stainless steel tube. This pot is going to get the heat transferred to it, and this is going to start to evaporate. You're going to start seeing steam rise off of this eventually. That's how the system cools. If we were to put this lid on here and clamp this down, system can't cool anymore. You're going to run it for about a half an hour, and the system's going to overheat, and you're going to get nothing but steam out of that hose. So do not use this lid when you're running it as a distiller. You only use that lid when you're going to use it as a gravity filter. Now we're going to show you, because we have this extra tube, I just want to show you, you can use this as an output tube, or you can use this as a drain. I sometimes will hook it up to this valve or this valve to drain the system so that I can clean it, because once you shut this down, it's still full of water. So that's the easiest way to do this. Obviously, once it's cooled off, is just hook up the hose to these valves. They're tapered. Open the valve, drain it into your sink, drain, wherever you want to drain the water. That way you can tear the system down and clean it occasionally in between uses so that you can clean the scale out of this boiling pot. All right, next I want to go over, we're going to set this aside for just a moment here, and we're going to go over the enhanced. This is the standard Gravi-Stil that we sell on our website. The enhanced system comes in a little box like this, and what that allows you to do is actually transfer water from an external source. Let's say you have a hot tub or a pool, or you're transporting water from the ocean. You want to desalinate with this, which you can desalinate ocean water. Say you want to desalinate, then you're going to transport water from the ocean to wherever you've set up to run this. Well, most people just simply use a little bucket, a 5-gallon bucket or a bucket this size. I think these are 3.5 gallons. So we would set this bucket up. We're bringing water from whatever water source we're transferring to, and we're going to set up our system. Now in the enhanced, it comes with a USB powered solar panel, which you do not have to use. You can use any USB powered device, so like a cell phone device, cell phone charger, little solar chargers, any power source that outputs USB. You could use a laptop, plug in the pump to the laptop USB, and that'll run. Inside the kit is also a drain back tube, which I'll show you how that gets installed. We have an air pump with a Schrader valve, and this little air pump is USB powered, once again, so that can be powered in an emergency by plugging it right into our solar panel and setting this out in the sun. If I can turn it this way, there we go. And then this is what we would be using to connect up to our our Schrader valve here in a little bit, to show you how we would use it under the high-speed mode. Inside here, there's going to be roughly 10-11 feet of silicone tubing with a stainless steel fitting and a pump. So I'll show you how that gets set up. We'll open that up. So here's our USB pump, and take the little wire nut off, and there we go. This is a submersible pump. It has a little screen. You don't have to use the screen if you don't want to, but we're going to go ahead and set that up in there, and we're going to drop that into our bucket like we would be transferring water from some source into the Gravi-Stil. And then this discharge tube would hang on the side of the unit. Inside here, the last part of the kit is the drain back tube. Now this is where we need this other fitting, so I'll show you here in a moment. We're going to set this up, and this is actually going to connect up to here. But first, we're going to need to make a small modification. Inside our pot, there is a stainless steel nut on the back of this. Let me move this out of the way so you guys can see here. So I'm going to take this valve off, and this is all in the instructions on how to set this up. We're going to take that little stainless steel nut off. We're going to reuse that little stainless steel washer, but what we're going to do is we're going to thread it onto this. So now I'm going to put that washer back on there, and we're going to hook up the little fitting. Now, when you're doing this, you obviously won't be able to turn this part, so you're going to have to turn the valve to tighten the system down. So just keep on turning and turning until we get it pretty tight, and then we're going to rest right about there. So now, if you can see inside there, what that's allowing us to do is have the water that's pumping into the system come up to that level before it drains back into our catchment. So I'm going to set this up here, back onto the system. We're going to open this valve, and we're going to connect up our drain back tube. Just like that. And you're going to push it on there a little ways just to make sure that it doesn't come off. And then this hose, if I can get it untangled here, this hose is going to go back into the water that you're pumping. So now what's going to happen is this. We're going to hook up our solar. We're running this outside, let's say. We're running it outside on a propane burner. We're going to plug in our solar panel. We're going to set this in the sun. This tiny little micro pump is going to start pumping the water from here and outputting the water into the pot. Once the water raises to that little fitting, it's going to drain back into the pot, into your catchment again. So we're always keeping water flowing and moving, so we don't have to manually fill this anymore. It's automatically going to fill the system. Now there's a couple things you're going to have to look for. This is going to be drained by gravity. We're pumping by electricity, by the solar panels or by a USB or something. So when we're doing that, we have to make sure this drain is going to be low enough so that it drains fast enough or faster than the pump is pumping in the system. If you don't do that, you can overflow or overrun this. If this was only draining back, because here's the drain on the valve, we have our fitting here, so that is the water level. So we can't have the output be here, it would never drain. We have to have this down low. So typically we'll take the container and set it on the ground. We need at least a 3-foot difference, give or take, from here to wherever we're pumping the water from, so that this will drain fast enough or faster than the water is being pumped into the system. So that's something that some people make mistakes about. You'll only do it once when you do it, because you'll notice right away that the water is overflowing. So that's how we'd set up the enhanced system. Now, what are the benefits to the enhanced system? The enhanced system, once this pot gets to a certain temperature, the water's being pumped back into your other catchment. So I could set up a 55-gallon drum here and never have to change my water and just keep the system very cool so our output's the highest. With the enhanced system, we have gotten up to about a gallon per hour of output when we have a cool water source. As this pot, the condenser pot, gets warmer and warmer, more steam is going to come out of this tube and water production is going to drop a little bit. But we still average, even with the standard Gravi-Stil, 8 to 10 cups an hour on average. A little higher in some areas. It all depends on atmospheric pressure, and all these things play into it, and how fast you're boiling the boiling chamber. This is a manual distilling system. It is not push a button and walk away and forget about it. You cannot do that with these, but these systems do make water very quickly. The simple electric water distillers that are on the market that you can buy on various websites, they use 750 to 1,000 watts of electricity, and they produce 1 gallon of water every 5 hours. So let's do the math. This thing can run on a 10,000 BTU gas burner or propane or wood, and we're making 8 to 10 cups of water an hour without the enhanced, and up to a gallon per hour with the enhanced. Now, it requires a little bit of input from us because we got to watch it and make sure that it's actually filling and doing what it needs to do. But we can make water 5 times faster with this system than we can with an electric distiller, and at 1/10 the cost. 1,000 watts for these electric distillers is 1 kilowatt. Well, 1 kilowatt costs 12 cents, and you need 5 hours to run it. So 1 gallon of water from an electric distiller costs you anywhere from 50 cents to 60 cents to make a gallon of water. With this system, we can make a gallon of water on natural gas for less than 5 cents. So it's very, very economical way to make distilled water. One other thing I wanted to touch on, with a lot of troubleshooting that people have asked about, is that once you receive the system, we make it here in Burlington, Wisconsin. All the stuff is assembled, drilled, built, bent. We have mandrels. We do everything here. You need to wash them. Wash it with soapy water. Clean everything up before you assemble it and start making water with it. That's just common sense, but believe it or not, we've had a lot of people that have had issues with not doing that and saying that, well, what's this grease on it or whatever? Well, we use cutting oil to cut metal. That's just a fact. That's how things work. But anyway, so let's now tear the system down, show you what you're going to need to look for when you're going to clean the system, and also we'll convert it from the distilling system into the gravity filter system. So we'll go ahead and take this hose off. We're going to take out the discharge tube and the solar panel, because we're not going to be, well, here, I'll grab the solar panel because we can use that on the other system. And we'll set this stuff aside for a moment. We're going to take off the small condensing pot, and we're going to remove our stainless steel feed tube. Make sure you don't lose any parts. Put everything back together here. So tighten it down a little bit just so that doesn't jar loose, and we'll set that aside. Now we're going to remove our drain back for the enhanced. So go ahead and spin that valve off. We're going to set that aside. We're going to put back on our little stainless steel nut that goes on it. And make sure we close that valve, because you don't want to fill the system with that valve open. You'll get wet. So we're going to go ahead and set our glass output away. We're going to remove the collection plate because this is not used when we're using it as a gravity system. Next, we're going to take out the float because the float's not used. Now, we're going to grab our ceramic filter. Now, this is only used on fresh water. As a distiller, you can use this system on just about any water source on the planet. But it requires heat because we need to be able to boil water. With a gravity filter, and the beauty behind the gravity filter system is that this filter does all the work. Now, I don't know if you can hear that. It sounds like a little maraca. Inside this filter is activated carbon. The filter pore size, the pores in this ceramic filter are 0.2 microns. What that means is even bacteria can't make it through this filter, because bacteria is much larger than that. Then all the chemicals that might be in freshwater sources get absorbed with the active carbon. So now this system, that's why that makes this system so unique. It's the only system on the market that can do this. We're going to take this ceramic filter, and inside our top condenser pot, when we're using it as a distiller, we are going to install that ceramic filter into, if I can line it up here, into that hole and put our nut on it. Just like that. We don't need to be very tight. Now, there's our filter installed. We're going to set that down so we can put our lid back on and tighten this down. And we're going to take this and set it right in the middle. You'll notice once it's in the middle. Now we don't need our heater pot anymore. This can be set we don't need any type of heating source. So we'll set that aside just to get it off the table. So now we're going to dump dirty water into here. It's going to make its way through the ceramic filter, drip into this condenser, and then this becomes our output. So this would hang off of your countertop or wherever, and when you want clean water, you open that up. Now obviously you're going to have to wash this, especially if you used it as a distiller, because this is going to get pretty grimy in there. But anything that takes down calcium, we've used CLR, stuff like that, to clean these once they get really, really grimy. We have purposely run our distiller until it failed. It took almost 2 months to do that, of running it every night, and we make 2-3 gallons a night with our system. But you are going to have, it is going to get pretty grimy in here after a while, because we're boiling off the water and leaving all those minerals and everything else that's in that water behind. So now this is set up for gravity. Now we can use our lid. So if we don't want, dirty stuff to get inside there, or you just don't want to leave it open, we can put this lid on there. Now, this lid has a Schrader valve in it. And you will notice there is no valve inside there. That's by design. So people that sometimes don't read the instructions will say, hey, you didn't put a valve in there. Well, that is for a reason. This is gasketed. You can see the gasket on the bottom. When we put this on here and we lock this down, if this thing had a valve in there, the water would begin to drop as it goes through the filter, and then it stops right about here because we have a vacuum inside here. We create a vacuum. So we take that valve out so that air will continue to flow into the system and replace the water, and then you can fill it up again. So that's perfectly fine to leave it just like this, you know, if you don't need the high-speed mode. These filters will produce anywhere from a half gallon to a little less than 3/4 of a gallon per hour, just using gravity. Gravity does its work and forces water through the filter. Now, let's say you want to make water more quickly and you don't want to use the enhanced system. All the systems come with this little air pump. So now we can actually thread this pump right onto the top here. Just a little ball pump that we include in the systems. And when water's in here, we can put a little bit of air pressure in there and it forces the water through the ceramic filter faster. If you every once in a while just put a little bit of air pressure in there, it'll easily make, 3 to 4 gallons of water an hour by simply doing that. It does take some manual intervention though. You're going to have to come up here and pump it every once in a while to put a little bit of air pressure in it. On the enhanced system, we include this. This is actually a miniature USB powered air pump with a Schrader on it. So now in the enhanced system, if you don't want to pump it, you put this on here. You can actually pull this off to thread it on there faster. So we thread that on there. We hook up our little hose there. I like to use the little carabiner that comes with it to actually hook it right around the stem, just like that. And then, if we were camping or somewhere where we have USB power, it could be the solar panel, it could be your USB powered unit for your cell phone, once again your laptop, USB battery banks, all of those. You're going to plug that right into the panel. Then this little pump is going to turn on and put air pressure in this top container, and will clear this container out in about a half an hour, even less. So you can easily make 4 to 5 gallons of water an hour using this small pump to accelerate the production. Now if you notice, this pot is smaller than this one. It takes 2 of these pots to fill this one. So you have more storage than you have production area. But you have to be aware that if you run, say you had 3/4 of this or 2/3 of this pot full, and we have a full container here, guess where the water is going to go once this empties out? It's going to overflow. So you either have to be aware that you're going to drain the system off. You can drain it off and then continue production. Or I like to just look at like this, and you can look through the hole, see how much water you have, and say, I'm good. I don't need to make any more water for today. So that's what you have to be aware of, is that this system, just like any of them, it doesn't shut off automatically. It's going to continue to push water through the system into here. If you run out of space in here, it's got to go somewhere. So you can either put it off into a container or just simply turn the system off and empty the top container so it doesn't make any more water. The last thing I want to touch on is the pre-filter sock. Most people don't have to use this. This sock is designed to go over the ceramic filter. That is typically only used when you're going to use dirty surface water. So if your water has a lot of organic material in it, you're pulling it out of a river or a lake or something like that, I would definitely put the sock over the filter. Very simple to do. It's got a little tie string. You just slide it right over the top of the filter before you install it, and then, if I can do it here, and then tie the string onto it. That way that captures all the dirty stuff and doesn't plug up your filter as quickly. Another good use for this pre-filter sock is when you're using the system as a distiller and you're using surface water, You want to get as much organic material out of the water as possible because you will make seaweed soup. You're boiling that water in here, and a little bit of that smell can transfer. So what we'll do is I'll take this, and when I fill this pot up, I will dump the water into this sock before it gets into the distiller section. That helps clean that water up so you don't have that problem. But anyway, if you guys have any questions about any of this stuff, by all means contact us through our website. We have a chat system on our site at SHTFandGO.COM. Yes, that's stuffhitsthefan&go.com. And also helpingwater.org. You can reach us at both areas because we have both sites. So anyway, I hope that it clears up a lot of the system. Once again, if you have any questions, just let us know. And I appreciate you watching. Thank you.